Hello and welcome to the Formula 1 2019 season review, around 4 or 5 months after my last live stream, which was a mid-season review. I'm actually joined by Lando Norris today. No, I'm joined by Snake. Hello.
Jake, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Everything now it's not Lando. So, hello.
Yeah, we tried to book him, but he'd afraid he couldn't find his gloves or his steering wheel. Yeah, I don't know what gave it away. So yeah, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna recap the season as a whole, and I haven't really thought about how we're gonna do this. So what I thought we'd start off with, since we did the mid-season review after Hungary, is recap the races sort of happened after Hungary. And if I remember rightly, Belgium, Italy, and Singapore were all dominated by Ferrari.
Yeah, they very were. Quite a turnaround, really. Ferrari showing the pace that we saw in testing, before the season started. Everyone thought Ferrari was strong favourites to win races, and then we approached the mid-season point and they were winless. Could argue some should have won a couple of races, but due to poor strategy or reliability, it just did not work. It was a poor first half of the season for them, but yeah, they really needed those race wins. They really did.
Even though they'd not won a race up to Hungary, I sort of remember we still believed that Belgium or Italy they could win, because the sort of tracks that they were sort of suited to the strengths of the Ferrari car. But I have to say,
especially with their straight line speed.
Absolutely, but I have to say, even after winning Belgium and Italy, I did not expect them to dominate the way they did at Singapore.
No, and it's been very controversial all year with Ferrari, to be fair, with one certain Max Verstappen accusing them of cheating.
And how oddly that they suddenly lost their pace after he accused them of cheating.
Yeah.
Not that I'm suggesting anything.
Well, it's funny, as soon as that was mentioned, the pace suddenly dropped off. Very strange coincidence.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have a quick look. Actually, before we start the game. Actually, I want to see just how far they were off a win in Russia. I believe it was after Singapore. I'm sure it was quite a lot. Let's have a look. Here we go, Russia. Yeah, so Leclerc finished third behind the two Mercedes, and he was quite a way off.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Japan they're even worse. Their pace vanished. It's very strange that you go from winning 3 races in a row, all pretty comfortably, I'd say, to all of a sudden having no pace.
The tracks changed dramatically either. It's very, very strange and unusual. It's hard to argue if Ferrari had a very good car this season, because at certain tracks they were the fastest by far, and certain other tracks they were nowhere near Red Bull or Mercedes.
It is very strange. It hasn't exactly been smooth sailing for Ferrari, not just with terms of the car's random bursts of performance and then no performance. I think the drivers have had it tough this season as well. In particular, it's been another tough season for Sebastian Vettel.
It's not been a great year for Seb, and the fact that he's got a new rival to deal with now. Of course, Leclerc has beaten Sebastian Vettel in terms of how many points they've got between each other, which I think is true that Leclerc did a better job than Vettel this year. 2 victories to Vettel's 1 as well. I felt like that victory Vettel got in Singapore was gifted. Leclerc was not allowed to really fight Vettel, but that's It's just how it is, and obviously we've seen them tangle a couple of times, haven't we? Especially in Brazil. They don't like each other. That's clearly obvious. Vettel needs to do well next year. He really does. I hope he does. I never thought I'd be saying that, but he is a good rival, and he is actually funny outside the car. He's a great character. So yeah, I hope he does well next year.
It's been a strange one really as well, because although you touched on the fact that they don't really like each other, I think it's that Vettel feels threatened by Leclerc, and Leclerc's probably a bit iffed off that Vettel's, well, Rob Brazil comes to mind, being a bit aggressive towards him on the track. But that's what happens with Vettel. It happened against Ricciardo as well. He doesn't tend to deal very well when he has a teammate that can challenge him.
Mark Webber in Turkey in 2010.
Well, I tell you, Mark Webber and Vettel in Turkey 2010 wasn't that different from Vettel, Leclerc in Brazil. It really wasn't.
It really isn't.
It's almost spooky how similar they were. It's Vettel once again just sort of leaning over towards his teammate without really thinking about what he's doing.
It almost feels deliberate. You rarely ever see a driver doing that.
No, the only time we sort of see like drivers squeezing one another is maybe at the end of a corner. You sort of see one driver maybe shove someone off the track a bit, but you don't rarely see on a straight someone come across someone while they're alongside them like that. It's so dangerous.
The Golf Club. Playing for skins today, and we're going to be pretty breezy about it. We're not playing for any kind of currency or anything like that.
What I thought we'd do, we sort of ranked the teams and drivers a bit in the mid-season special. What we want to do is in depth this time, just because there's a lot to talk about. But what I thought we'd do is go through each team and just sort of summarise how the team and the drivers have done. We'll start off from the top this time. So Mercedes, another dominant year for them, winning both titles with their season.
Another fantastic year for them, really. Although I do feel like they've had good competition this year with Red Bull and Ferrari. Very, very good. Very, very fantastic strategies. I think their strategies this year have been very, very good for most races. That's helped them out massively. What helps with Mercedes and why they keep winning all the time is not just because they've got a good car, but they've got a great team around them. It's absolutely a fantastic team, and when they combine that with the drivers as well, when they're both working together, everything seems to roll really well. And they're almost unbeatable when they're like that. They've got a good team together. Even when they don't have the fastest car, they sometimes win, and that's incredible to have. So very, very good. You know, if I had to give it a score, I'd say 9 out of 10 or something. But you know, it's a fantastic performance for Mercedes.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think you've summed up really well. The only slight downsides that maybe stop me from making it a 10 out of 10 are Germany. They had a real shocker in Germany, and Hamilton's strategy in Brazil was probably the one time where Mercedes have done a strategy and I've been like, what are you doing? But
I can't give them a 10 because, well, they've lost a few races. Races they could have won as well. Germany was a shocking race for Mercedes. I can't wait to watch the next Netflix episode of that. It's
very nice.
It's not perfect, obviously. It's not. They're not as dominant as they were between the years of 2014 to 2016. But the reason I'm giving them a score so high is because of how well they've dealt with the competition this year.
It's kind of strange how it sort of changed from 2014 onwards. You completely put me off what I was saying. That was awful. Yeah, it's kind of strange how it's changed from 2014 onwards. 2014, a lot of people said, oh, you know, the engine sort of carries them a little bit.
And
You
this
know,
next putt's for
I'd
par.
argue this year the engine's probably been one of the weaker parts of the car. Like Ferrari have definitely had a better engine, and Honda, you could
And this
argue
putt to
towards the
win the
latter
hole.
end of the season, have matched them as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
although the engines might be weaker, it's not that far off, and
One skin on the
it
board
is
for our leader.
incredibly reliable. Probably the most reliable out of all the engines.
Oh, definitely.
All right, and fresh new
In
skin
terms
is
of the
up for
drivers,
grabs on
then,
this hole.
I guess we might as well
Let's get this
we should
going.
start with the 6-time world champion. God, I think I'd be saying that about 8-9 years ago when Red Bull were dominating. Yeah, 6-time champion Lewis Hamilton.
Well, you've got to consider him as one of the greatest drivers of all time. There with the likes of Schumacher, Senna, Prost, the
Fangio.
yeah, Fangio. The list goes on. He's definitely, he needs to be considered up there. He's won championships with 2 different manufacturers. He's won so many titles with Mercedes, where a lot of people doubted him for making the move to Mercedes. Even I wasn't sure with the move, but I know things weren't going well at McLaren. So it was like a wait and see sort
And
of
let's
thing.
see how he does on this hole.
His season it's been very much the same as last year, I feel. Very, very good. I feel like his first half of the season is the best first half of the season he's ever had, by far. And that's how he got so much of a gap, and other drivers struggled to catch up with him from that point. So the championship was pretty much sealed at that point because he was that consistent. He's so hard to beat, and he pulled away so quickly at the first half of the season. So absolutely incredible.
It's astonishing how his
Could have
racecraft
worse
has.
lies. There are worse
I won't say racecraft
lies
improved,
on
but he's just as he's got more mature, he just seems to know how to deal with every sort of race situation that's thrown at him. He doesn't get phased, and we always used to say how great Lewis Hamilton was in qualifying sessions. This year, it's not been so much, but he's been that good in races. It hasn't really mattered.
Nice.
That's my only
guys here,
criticism,
105
really, is
yards
his
out.
qualifying performances. I believe it's only 4 pole positions.
I think
4
he
or
got
5.
he got 5. He got 5th in Abu Dhabi, but that still
5.
wasn't the most out of any driver, which was
Yeah.
surprising.
Of course. That is quite low for Lewis Hamilton, though. By his standards, of course. But 11 race victories, his joint highest amount in a season. Absolutely fantastic, considering the competition he's had this year. Bottas stepped up to the plate.
All
Ferrari
right, here we go. This one
were
for
incredibly
birdie.
quick in some races. Red Bull have stepped up. The Honda partnership. That is a lot of victories to say. I felt like this was the closest competition Mercedes have had since they were
He'll
dominant
get a skin.
in
Drops this.
2014.
I think for Lewis, I have to give him a 9.
Yeah, I'd want to give him a 10, but I can't with the amount of pole positions.
right, nice little 2-foot
Racecrafts,
putt.
like, if I had to judge him on races alone, probably 10 out of
10.
10.
Okay,
Just-
nicely
yeah.
done. Let's see.
Only
what-
Germany, really,
yeah,
you can
although,
criticise him.
yeah. Germany had a poor race, but even then, somehow he scored points. I felt like he got lucky with that.
So let's see how that all adds up.
Germany was the only
And as
poor
you
race that I
probably
could
could
think
tell,
of.
we're carrying things over to the next
And then
hole.
you had the pole
More skins
position.
on the
So
line.
yeah, I'll have to give him a 9. Yeah, fantastic.
Par 4
deserves
here.
every
Let's have
championship
a
he
nice,
gets.
clean drive.
Because Mercedes don't favour him as the number 1 driver there. They
Despite
only
what
do
some
that
people
when
say.
he's pulled ahead of the
Yeah.
championship. Yeah. They only favour the driver who's ahead of the championship against rival teams, and it's not his fault he keeps putting himself in that position to do that. So,
And in
fantastic.
in races, Mercedes always pit the guy first who's ahead. That's never been any different.
Vika
So-
Rosberg great driver. Not as good as Lewis, but
shit.
it was close between them. But Lewis had the edge. He did very well. Bottas is not quite there, but he's not quite Nico's level.
See what happens here with him.
But he's getting close. He's had some good races against Lewis this year, and he's won a few races, Bottas. Yeah, I mean, the rivals Lewis has beaten is, it's not been a cakewalk for him. So he's done well this year, Lewis.
I would say... Uh-oh. I would say that the one...
Yeah.
Wow! I would say that the one thing that Lewis has, which Bottas lacks, which I think is a massive difference, Lewis is relentless. Bottas goes through spells where he looks really, really good, but he just doesn't seem to be able to maintain them throughout a season. He has too many off races.
He's very inconsistent with his race performances. I think we've had a few weekends where he's been quicker than Lewis, and he's managed to get the job done. But then we go to other tracks where his pace is way off, and he's not even... Usually, he's in 5th or 6th position, usually at the back of the top teams. He needs to work on his consistency, Valtteri, and he needs to work on the tracks that he's not so good at. Because even at the tracks that Lewis is not so good at, he somehow puts himself up there.
Well, I definitely made sure it didn't go in the water.
Might want to take that into consideration when lining your shot up.
Definitely. Although I can't see a thing because of all the grass.
I'm not really sure where this is going to go, to be honest. But okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, so
oops.
Give Lewis a 9 out of 10. Bottas is a really tough one to give out of 10. What would you give him?
I feel like it's his best year. He's had a few race victories, pole positions. He's had 4. It's his best year. I'd probably at just about an 8. I feel like an 8 is a fair score for him.
Well, he comfortably finished second in the championship, which wasn't that easy this year.
No, the competition was tough this year for him, and I feel like
you're
said,
in the rough, but at least you aren't in the real
good performances in certain races. He just needs that consistency if he wants to challenge Hamilton at all. The turning point of the championship was definitely when he crashed in Germany. Lewis was not performing well, and Bottas could have probably gotten second in that race and closed down on that championship, and it would have been a lot closer. That was a big turning point.
Yeah, I think an 8 out of 10 is fair, and it is really, we can't underestimate how tough it is for Bottas to keep up with Lewis. I mean, Nico Rosberg found it really tough as well.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, that's a bit more pace than I'd gone in.
Oh.
Okay, this putt to win the hole.
So yeah, really another great year for Mercedes, and they're still the benchmark to beat. Teams are getting closer, but they just don't have the consistency that Mercedes have. Speaking of not having consistency, Ferrari.
Yeah,
new skin up for grabs on this.
Try to sum up their season if you can.
I guess I don't know. It's they had one spell where they did really good, and that was when they had those 3 race victories. Very good in certain areas, but very poor in most races for me. Very, very poor. Their race strategies, again, this year have been poor. At the start of the year, they felt that they should favour 4-time champion Sebastian Vettel, and that went downhill when they couldn't decide, should we have Leclerc get ahead of Vettel in the race, or they were mixing their strategies up. They gave Vettel the priority, and then the next minute Leclerc looked faster and they gave him the priority. They couldn't really decide if they had a number one driver or not anymore as the races went on. And that really hurt them. They couldn't... And when... No, then I think they decided to let them race, and when they've done that, that's not helped either. I feel like the rivalry is not good between Vettel and Leclerc. It's been a mixed season for Ferrari. I think they could be happy they've had a few victories. They started poorly, then after the mid-season break they did well, and then again I felt like they've been a bit poor towards the end. So overall, it's been mixed, but mostly negative than positive, I'd say, for Ferrari. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it all didn't look good from the start of the season, really. They looked great in pre-season testing, but there were already question marks. They made what I think is still the controversial and wrong decision to replace Arriva Bene with Binotto, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't think he's...
I feel like that was an unnecessary change. Definitely.
So that didn't really get things off to the best of starts. And then the decision to decide who was number one driver before the season started.
Well, at least you're out of this.
I mean, people gone about Mercedes, you know, favouring Hamilton, but to favour a driver before the season's even started, I think is really foolish.
It's a typical Ferrari thing to do. But what was even worse is that they didn't make it stick. As soon as Leclerc was performing well, they couldn't decide at that point who would they favour as their number one driver.
I think it created the tension between the teammates to begin with as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talk about how the drivers haven't helped the situation sometimes, but Ferrari kind of started it off, really.
Okay, this putt to win
with the way they treated the drivers. Really puzzling. Their pace for 3 races was excellent, but I still have question marks over how legal their car was for those 3 races.
5-footer here.
Yeah, I felt like Ferrari had been very controversial this year.
Great putt,
not impressed.
Is for par.
So I feel like they have been cheating, probably.
This next putt's for his par.
They do get away with a lot.
There's no doubt about it. If we are going to talk positives for Ferrari, their engine is very, very good in terms of the power, and like the fact it's overtaken Mercedes now is very impressive.
Things going to the next hole.
Another positive for Ferrari, I feel like, has been the overall performance of Charles Leclerc. He has really impressed in his first year at Ferrari.
On the line this hole.
Yeah, he's made a few mistakes. There was a couple of races he could have won, but he's had some great victories. I think Spa was probably his best performance, keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay. That was a very impressive race. So Monza as well was really good. He's done very, very well. You got to remember, it's only his second year. And he's had 2 victories already for Ferrari, and he's beaten 4-time champion Sebastian Vettel in terms of points this year. It's very, very solid performance, and fantastic. And I believe if he gets a good car again next year, I believe he's probably the closest challenger to Hamilton.
I could agree with that. Yeah, I think overall I'm going to give Ferrari themselves
okay, it's time
6.
To send this ball on its way.
You've got to remember they've got the most money. You know, the fact they haven't won a title now.
I feel like they've gotten away with a few things as well. It's the illegal fuel loads in Charles Leclerc's car in Abu Dhabi. What was that all about? If the fuel's illegal, then it's disqualification for any other team.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Renault had illegal brakes; they were punished. I don't know.
Tip. You might want to aim
very,
a little more to the left than you normally would here.
I don't like the idea of what Ferrari are doing. They've got to sort out the rivalry between Leclerc and Vettel, and they've got to have a number one driver. If they've got to have a number one driver, they've got to pick which one, or just let them fight it out.
Neither one of those.
That is.
But he's arguably performing like the number 2 driver. So the only option based off of that is to let them fight it out, but that hasn't gone well either.
Well, that's when you need to. Well, they had discussions about
the
that.
ball's sitting above your feet
so
here.
Hopefully that should stop with them colliding with each other. If I had to rate them, just because of the victories they've had, whether they're legal or not, I'll give them a 6 out of 10 as well.
Unlucky.
Now we've discussed Vettel quite a lot already, so I think we should just give him a mark out of 10. How harsh are you going to be?
It's his worst year, and even Vettel's admitted he needs to do better in 2020. He hasn't beaten his teammates. He did get victory in Singapore, and he's had some good performances, but I feel like most performances have not been Sebastian Vettel's standards. Quite average. I'll give him a 6. Just about 6.
Back on the fairway now.
And Charles, what are we going with for Charles?
Very impressive. He's made some mistakes, but he's had some fantastic performances. With a bit of experience, if he keeps learning, his maturity is the most impressive from him. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he'll get far in Formula 1, so I'd give him an 8 out of 10.
That's very fair. See, on to Red Bull Honda. Another year, yet another mid-season driver swap for Red Bull.
All right, 14 feet.
I can't remember when we did our mid-season review if a driver swap had happened. I don't think it had. So I guess we'll start with that. Right decision from Red Bull?
Yes, absolutely. The biggest shock for me with Pierre Gasly was he was fine against Toro Rosso's when he was in a Red Bull car. That's how poorly he was performing in certain races, and it didn't happen just once either. It happened in several races where he was fighting Toro Rosso cars, and even lost against the Toro Rosso sometimes. It's very poor. It's strange because then as soon as he went into Toro Rosso, he started performing well again.
Skins on.
So I felt like maybe the pressure got to him, but he had his chance and he didn't perform.
Yeah, he got second place in Brazil for Toro Rosso.
All right, and fresh new skin is up for grabs on this hole.
Late, probably.
Let's get this going.
That's the problem. For the way the Red Bull work, they want to see if he can handle the pressure. That's why they put the drivers in these situations. What Gasly has shown to them with his performances in the Red Bull is that he can't handle it.
Yeah.
Whereas Alex Albon's come in and I think done a very solid job.
Okay.
Would you go on with that?
He has done a solid job. Very consistent. Finish in the top 6. That's decent enough, and he's done that so far. So good job.
Absolutely. It's everything that Red Bull want. They don't want a driver to come in and beat Max Verstappen. They want a driver that is going to be a very capable number 2 driver and can pick up the scraps if it goes wrong for Max.
Sheer insanity.
Which, to be fair,
they want consistent number 2 driver.
That's just.
And to say that Albon only had like 8-9 races, and let's not forget this was his first F1 year as well. It's not every rookie that gets shoehorned into a top car 11 races into their F1 career. So I think he's handled that really well. And in terms of Max Verstappen, best year to date in F1?
Oh,
man. By far. I think we've even argued how mature he performed in previous years and how it's already, was it his 6th year?
And nicely done.
Formula 1, going on to 7.
Opponent does now.
Something like that. And how immature he is in certain races. What has impressed me the most is his consistency this year. It's been fantastic. And that needed to happen
nothing
too.
Really changed. Two-way tie.
It's his best year by far, definitely.
And in terms of Red Bull Honda, an unlikely partnership, but one I think it's fair to say that's really worked well so far.
I think it was a surprise to everybody of how well they've gelled together in just literally their first year together in partnership. I think everyone expected Red Bull to fall behind a little bit with a brand new engine. Obviously, the Honda had a lot of reliability problems, but this time the engine looks really good. Honda has provided the best engine by far that they've made anyway. So fantastic. I don't think they could ask for much more this year. So I think both the engine manufacturer and the team are happy.
I think the biggest demonstration was actually by a Toro Rosso. I mean, Gasly and Hamilton were slipstreaming, well, alongside each other on the way to the line in Brazil, and you thought, well, Mercedes is going to pull ahead. In fact, the Toro Rosso had more speed down the straight.
Okay, next stop, fairway, right?
Certainly did, and Hamilton got the slipstream. You know, it's yeah, definitely. Looks impressive.
In terms of Red Bull, then, there's a question for you. Do you think Red Bull Honda, with how much progress they've made this year, do you think they have the capabilities to challenge for the title next year?
Tough one. I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay,
I feel
so
like
we have
Mercedes
about
still
115 yards
the edge.
Thereabouts to the pin.
2021 is huge, and I feel like Red Bull are capable of winning titles again with Honda if Honda will stay, because the partnership has worked so well this year for them. Next year, I don't think so. There's not many changes next year, but you never know.
And for the team and the drivers, what would you score them out of 10?
The team itself, it's been a very good year for them. I'd probably give the team a 9. In terms of the partnership with Honda, the race victories they've had, and how well it's just come together in literally just the first year of partnership. It's incredibly impressive. And they've had a lot of good results this year. Max Verstappen, very, very good. There was the odd race where he did show his immaturity again, and that was in Mexico, where he said he didn't slow under yellow flags, and had he not have mentioned that, he probably would not have got a penalty, but he did.
Hey, this one to save.
And then he crashed several times with Hamilton, Bottas, and Magnussen. Verstappen was by far the fastest in Mexico, and he could have easily won that race had he just kept his cool. He should have easily won that race. So that was poor from him. But everywhere else, very good. Fantastic victories, especially Brazil. So I'd have to give him a 9 out of 10. Very, very good, his best year. Alexander Albon, very good rookie season. Promoted to Red Bull and been consistent towards the end of the season. Very good performance from him. I'd give him an 8 out of 10. I think for his first year, it's been very impressive.
I think I pretty much agree with all those marks, and yeah, I think the key for Albon was not to be battling with the midfield cars like Gasly was, and he certainly hasn't been. In fact, at times, I mean, at Brazil, he was looking like he was going to get a podium until that collision with Hamilton. It showed a little bit of his immaturity with that collision in terms of the fact that he left the door wide open. But, you know, that'll come with experience.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and Lewis, to be fair to him, Lewis kind of blamed himself for that. A little bit.
We're a little bit to blame.
We have a new skin up for grabs on this hole.
I suppose we have to mark him because he was at Red Bull for half season, Gasly.
For his Red Bull performance,
Yeah, because
Three.
yeah, I say we'll judge him on his
It
Toro
was
Rosso
very good.
performance at Toro Rosso. Yeah, it really wasn't good. It sounds weird for Red Bull, but I actually argue they probably gave him a little bit too much time. But yeah, they made a decision in the end. The only thing I didn't like about the way Red Bull dealt with it is that literally a race before he was demoted, Christian Horner said it wasn't going to happen. So I thought was a bit needless, but
Never believe what Christian Horner says. You know how much I don't like him. So.
yeah.
His personality, I give him a 0.
Well, there's a certain
Moving
Spice Girl
on.
that seems to like it. Anyway.
Money!
Oh yeah, because I'm sure she's really short of it.
Well, more money.
We'll move on to the team that were fourth in the constructors now.
Guys, send this ball
And
away.
quite surprisingly too, as well, a really good year of progress for McLaren. How would you summarise their successful campaign?
I don't think anyone expected it. I feel like this is the biggest surprise this season. How dramatically McLaren have improved. Quite oddly, as soon as Fernando Alonso left. The switch to Renault was not a good idea, but they are making the most out of it. They really are. And what an impressive year it's been. They have done some great work on the car, it must be said. And their driver pairing, they have picked
And
two
this putt to
very,
win the
very
hole.
good drivers. One very good rookie driver and one very good experienced driver. Very, very fantastic. They've scored consistently. The drivers have worked well together. There's no real rivalry between them.
They get on great, judging
sorry.
from social media posts.
Yeah, exactly. I really love McLaren this year. They've done very well. Fantastic season for them.
And after that one,
I'd say
seven
that
skins
there's
on the
been
board
the
for our leader.
most impressive team out of all the teams this season, I think, in terms of improvement.
I agree. I'm actually going to give McLaren a 9.5 out of 10.
Grabs on this hole. Let's get this going.
The only thing that stops me giving them a 10 is their decision to change engine supplier.
I think that's a bit harsh, considering that decision was made before the season.
Alright, fine, I'll give him a 10. Actually, no, I won't give him a 10.
I feel like, yeah, it's not like they changed to it during the season.
I'll
I have
stick.
to give him a 10 also.
I'm sticking with.
absolutely.
I'm sticking with a 9.5. It might be a little bit biased, but it's just purely because I'm still a little bit heartbroken after Norris had to retire from the last lap of Belgium.
All right, let's
Phil-
let her rip.
Wasn't that an engine problem?
For fuck's sake, Renault.
Yeah, I have to give them a 10. It's just they've been the best team out of everybody, and nobody expected them to finish fourth. Nobody did. It's been incredible for them, and the podium finish as well. For
Oh
Carlos
my
Sainz.
god! That would have
What the
been.
fuck was that bounce?
That nearly went in. What the?
Wow.
Okay, you can stop now.
I mean, where it's landed is pretty fair, considering where it went.
It'd have been so funny if it had gone in. Oh!
Oh, I'm looking at.
Thanks.
But yeah,
Okay, this
just,
putt to win the hole.
they've picked really good drivers. The team is very good. It's only the engine that's letting them down a bit, but they're beating their own engine supplier team. So
You could
Yeah,
you could say at McLaren Snake, and I've been waiting to say this. You could say it's been a smooth operation.
they did send it.
Here's
They
his
did send it.
6-foot putt.
Now, this is a I hate to say I told you so moment to all the doubters, but I couldn't be happier about the way this year's
Right,
gone for
need
Carlos
this putt to
Sainz.
drop to carry the hole.
A lot of
There
people
you
have
go. Well
underestimated
done, and that's
this
gonna carry
driver,
this
and I
hole.
don't know why.
Well, no one
People-
won that hole, so we're
I don't think
carrying
they
things
really
over two
looked at
skins
his
up for
Toro
grabs
Rosso
on the next hole.
performance when he was fighting Max Verstappen. They were pretty close between each other. They don't get on, which is why he left Red Bull, Carlos Sainz. Probably a wise decision.
It's funny how a lot of drivers make strange decisions to leave teams where Max Verstappen's their teammate. Just saying.
I don't think Red Bull would have, because they knew about the rivalry, I don't think they would have ever have given Carlos Sainz a Red Bull seat unless Max Verstappen left Red Bull. So I
No.
felt like the move had to be made.
I think since Vettel and Webber, they're trying their
Okay,
best to avoid having
bunker in the fairway.
another scenario like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Carlos Sainz his best year of his career. He got a podium finish for McLaren, the first in I believe it's 5 years, is
Okay,
it?
we are
Something
very
like that.
deep
It's a
in the
long
rough.
time.
Careful with this one.
He's finished consistently. Most races he's finished best of the rest. Best
Looks
of
like
the
you're going
midfield.
into the rough on this one.
Just absolutely incredible. His consistency has been impressive. He's up there this season with Verstappen and
Sitting
Hamilton.
up here,
for me,
about
in terms of
160
how well he's done.
yards to the pin.
So a 9 then.
A very solid 9, very close to a 10.
Wow, you've not said that for any other driver. Ooh, I might be giving away
No.
who you're giving your driver of the season to a little later on. Yeah, Sainz for me, it's the most obvious 9 I think I'll probably give in any review ever.
I feel
yeah.
like he's still being underrated. I feel.
Well, I'll
Which
tell
is
you
really
one.
annoying.
I'll tell you one group of people that's underestimating him or like not giving him the respect he deserves. The sodding camera people. He barely ever gets on TV.
And even the podium, he wasn't able to go on the podium properly because of the penalties. So he didn't even have time then.
It's bad that
Driver of
Mercedes.
the day system is bullshit, by the way, because I don't think he ever got driver of the day, where I felt like there was several weekends where he should have got it. But never mind.
Well, Lewis Hamilton could argue that as well. Is another
Yeah.
one that doesn't tend to be very well liked by fans,
Okay,
and as a
this
result
putt to
doesn't
win
get
the
many.
hole.
I mean, driver of the day in Abu Dhabi just summed up how stupid the system is.
Yeah, that was a joke. Hulkenberg was not driver of the day in Abu
And
Dhabi. I don't care what anyone says.
Kubica was not third.
Yeah, come on, guys, ridiculous.
But move on to Lando Norris then, and I was happy to see both him and Russell in F1 this year. Obviously, the more British drivers on the grid, the better. Oh, come on, roll back down, damn it.
This putt to win the hole.
But what I didn't realise is just what an awesome personality Lando Norris has. He's such a such a breath of fresh air to the grid, and not a bad driver as well.
All right, 13-footer
I think
here.
Daniel Ricciardo has a rival with who's the funniest driver in F1. He's got such a personality, Lando Norris. He's so great. Great character. Always happy and
5-footer here,
smiling.
nothing too bad.
Very similar to Daniel Ricciardo. His rookie season, it's been very impressive and very good team player. He's not quite there
spins
with
for
Carlos
him,
Sainz, but I don't
since
think anyone expected him to be. Carlos Sainz has got a lot of experience. For his first year, Lando Norris, it's been very impressive, and he's had
And
some
9
very
skins
good
on the board
performances.
for our leader after that one.
I think his mark to me is quite easy as well. For me, it's an 8.
A very solid 8, definitely.
Okay,
Very
we
solid
have a
day.
skin up for grabs
and,
on
and
this
yeah,
hole.
definitely there with Albon
Let's
for
get down
Rookie
there
of the
and see
Year,
what
and
happens.
I just can't wait to see more of both him on track and in press conferences, especially when him and Ricardo are together.
Yeah, exactly.
It is absolutely brilliant. And then the moment where he shoved Albon in the paddock.
I know. is
Okay, it's
incredible.
time to send this
and
ball
then,
on its way.
Oh, there's a video where Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris are raving in the car on the F1 theme tune,
Whoa,
like
quite slice onto that.
and they're headbanging, and it's so funny.
Absolutely. What a great year for McLaren, and they finish as the top Renault-powered car ahead of
he's got
Renault,
135 yards to the pin.
which is slightly awkward. We'll get on to Renault. And
Yeah.
get to Renault now. Would it be fair to say this has been a bit of a disappointing year for them?
A very poor year for them, I think. Felt like they recovered it a bit towards the end. Oh shit.
Oh dear.
Oh no!
I think you almost told us is out of bounds.
Oh dear.
It's not out of bounds. Oh
And it
dear.
looks like we have about 135
I think I
yards
just
or
played
so to go.
a shot that, resembles Renault's performance in a nutshell. Downhill.
I'm going to play this cautiously based off of what happened with you.
Anyway, Renault. A lot of people
You're on the
expected
green, a
Renault
lot of work to
to
do, but you're on.
perform closely to the top three. And they were struggling against midfield teams. Their reliability at the start of the season was very poor. And they only just got it together, really, towards the end, but by then it was too late. They lost 4th place to McLaren. It's not been great for them.
I mean, Daniel Ricciardo obviously made a very brave move at the end of last year to join Renault. I don't think he'll be happy with the way it's gone this year. They certainly wouldn't have expected to not be the best at Renault-powered car. And this is going to be amusing for the next 2 minutes.
I might lose this hole.
I don't know, man. Keep believing. Oh, God.
I hope I can get back off.
Well, we talked about Renault. I think this is summoning them up pretty well.
Yeah, just give me a minute. You keep talking about Renault. I'll just
Okay.
I'm gonna be a while.
So yeah, they've not even been the best Renault-powered car. It's been really poor from them. There has been moments where it's looked like they're turning a corner. Their performance in Monza, I believe, was very good. They were up there with the Ferraris and like the Red Bulls. But apart from that, it hasn't been great. I think it's a big year for them next year. There's talk of, obviously, Renault being a big car manufacturer. There's talk of the manufacturer not really interested in staying in F1 for much longer. They've got to show something next year,
Okay, this
otherwise
putt to win the hole.
I'm not sure they'll be on the grid next year. Or 2021, should I say.
There have been rumours of Renault pulling out again, haven't they?
Yeah.
That'll be a disaster for Daniel Ricciardo's career if he can't get a seat.
You imagine he'd get a seat somewhere, but I'm not sure it'd be where he was hoping to get it.
And this putt to win the hole.
Might not be a very good one.
Nicely done.
I
and
mean,
that'll get you the skin.
could you argue maybe
Board
Ferrari?
says 9 skins.
If Vettel has another bad year, maybe there might be a spot available at Ferrari.
I don't.
All right.
Possibly.
And fresh new skin is up for grabs on this hole. Let's get this
but-
going.
There are rivals who could take that seat. Hamilton's been rumoured, Bottas as well. So it's not guaranteed. Definitely not.
And if Vettel has a great year all of a sudden, then there'll be no way he's leaving.
Definitely.
Yeah, for Renault, a 5. I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
It hasn't been good. I think they've
Nice.
hired Ocon next year
Okay,
to
he
sort
appears
of
to be ready to
try
roll
and
on
convince,
this
obviously
one.
having a
Let's see
French
how this
driver
tee
in the
shot
team,
goes.
try and convince Renault to stick with it for longer, but I don't know, they need a big year next year. They cannot afford to be behind McLaren again next year, because, you know, it doesn't look good when someone using your engine's doing a better job than you are.
100%. McLaren did a better job, and they had, Renault's engine.
It's about
McLaren shouldn't have
120
finished
yards
ahead
or
of
so to the
Renault.
pin
That
from here.
shouldn't have happened, but it did. I'd probably say a 5 as well. Very average. They've taken a step back a little bit. Probably a 5's a bit generous, but I feel like
Approacher on
5.
the green. And look who we found.
I'm only
in
given
the
that
rough.
because of how
Let's see what
great
happens.
performances Daniel Ricciardo is given in certain races. So
I was about to say,
like-
the one shining light for me at Renault this year has been that Ricciardo's shown enough to suggest that if Renault can get their act together, they've got a driver that can fight it out at the front.
yeah, it's a good job they've got such a good driver in that car, because if they hadn't, they would have been probably worse off in the Constructors' Championship.
What would you give Ricciardo out of 10? I mean, I'm personally thinking an 8.
Yeah, a solid 8, I think that's fair. He's had some great consistent performances. Nothing that's wowed me, like that chip shop.
Good timing there.
That was alright.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'd say that's. I'd say an 8 is a fair score for him.
And of course,
The
the
board
end of
says
2019
10 skins for our leader
brings a
after that.
farewell to Nico Hulkenberg. Most likely his F1 career. I don't think I see a way back for him now. In future years.
Okay, we
How would
got
you
a
rate
skin
Nico
up for
Hulkenberg's final
grabs
year?
on
And
this
is
hole.
it a little bit
get
harsh
down
that he
there
hasn't
and see
been
what
given a
happens.
seat somewhere?
Very consistent driver, but he doesn't have that extra gear to step it up. He's very consistent, a great midfield driver, but he's not really a top driver. I don't think he's good enough for a top seat, and that's probably why he's never really had one. He's just not quite there. There's drivers that are better than him. But he doesn't deserve to leave F1 just yet. There are drivers in F1
Right,
next
stop.
year
Let's,
who are
let's hope for
worse
some fairway.
than Nico Hulkenberg, personally.
Grosjean.
Definitely.
Especially when
Good
Haas were
later.
considering those two as who was a better option, and they didn't go with Hulkenberg.
Especially the weekend at Silverstone. Steiner was furious with the performance of both Kevin Magnussen and Roman Grosjean that weekend. And yet, nothing. The same driver pairing. Nico should be in a seat. I felt like he should have been in a Haas seat.
I don't want to use a darting analogy here, but I'm going to. Actually, I really want to. I feel like, and you'll know what I mean here, anyone who doesn't watch darts will have a clue what I'm on about here, but Peter Wright in finals reminds me of Nico Hulkenberg anytime there's a chance of a podium. He always finds a way to bottle it.
Yeah, people would argue, oh, well, he's had bad luck, and well, no, he's had several opportunities to score on the podium. And
Germany.
There's been a couple of occasions where he's messed up on his own accord. Germany is the biggest example.
He should have been the podium, and he made a really silly mistake, and then when he sort of lost it, and he tried to brake on a really slippery part of the track. That was never going to end
All
well.
right, nice little 2-foot putt.
And you could argue
All right, nicely
that
done. Let's see what
Nico
your
would
opponent
be
does now.
still in the Renault seat had
He got that podium.
outperformed Daniel Ricciardo, but he didn't.
Okay,
Having
let's
for
see what
Nico
the scorecard
Hulkenberg,
says.
a 6.
And after that one, no skins have changed hands.
Yeah,
Just a two-way
I'd
tie
probably
after
say
that
6
one.
also. Not his best year, but he doesn't deserve to go.
But doesn't that just kind of sum up Nico
As we
Hulkenberg's
tee
career?
off on this one,
He's a
two
6 out of
skins
10
on the line.
driver, isn't he?
He's a solid driver, but he's not a great driver. But like I said, there's loads of there's several drivers on the grid that shouldn't be there.
But some have money, and some even get their daddy to buy a team for them.
Stroll,
Grosjean,
Kubica, obviously Latifi's going there, but and Grosjean, yeah.
Move on to 6th place in the constructors now. I'm not 100% sure I've got this right, but I think 6 was Toro Rosso, wasn't it? Because I think they were quite close to Renault.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, Toro Rosso obviously having it's their second year with the Honda engine, I believe, because didn't they have it a year before Red Bull took it on?
Yeah.
It was sort of to see how it went. How would you sum up Toro Rosso's season?
Pretty good, I think.
This one has some teeth.
I think they've had some very good performances. Of course, they've had some weekends where they've been off the pace. But they've, I believe they've had, 2 podiums this year?
What?
Yeah, Gasly in Brazil, and
like
was it Kvyat in Germany?
Yeah. Which I don't think anybody expected. So, yeah, very good job from them.
I think it'd be fair to say as well that all the Toro Rosso drivers, when they've been in the Toro Rosso, have performed pretty well. Even Gasly, after his disastrous stint at Red Bull.
Seems like the pressure is off for them when they're in the Toro Rossos.
I mean, we're going to talk about Danny Kvyat first, because he's obviously the only Toro Rosso driver that's been there all season. The whole point of a Toro Rosso team, as far as I can work out, is to nurture drivers for when they go into Red Bull. What's the point of Kvyat being there? Because he's never going to go back to Red Bull now, surely.
Yeah. I thought he'd be the next... I thought he'd be able to return to Red Bull as soon as they demoted Gasly, and now I think Red Bull just favour younger drivers for some reason. The only good thing with Kvyat being in that Toro Rosso is to try and impress the other teams, because I don't think he's ever going back in the Red Bull now.
And luckily for him, Toro Rosso, Red Bull have kind of run out of drivers.
Okay, let's put this drive in the fairway.
Yeah, which is the only reason why he's back, really.
How would you sum up his season?
I thought it was pretty good. He got a good podium finish as well. He's had some great performances. I was disappointed when he didn't get the Red Bull seat and return, because I felt like in the first place he was harshly demoted because they were so desperate to get Max Verstappen in the car.
No good.
So I'd say 7.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think on the whole, he's done very well. There's still been the odd torpedo moment. His move on Raikkonen at Singapore was was ambitious, let's just say. On the whole, he's done very well, but there are still signs that he's not the complete driver. He's nowhere near that. He clearly hasn't done enough to impress other teams because he's still at Toro Rosso for next year. But I think if he can just iron out a few of his mistakes, and I think in consistency as well, I think that's also where he's lacking a little bit. I think there's a future for him in F1 at another team, I do. But yeah, it's a solid year, but there is still room for improvement for him. I think 7's pretty fair.
Yeah.
I'll let you decide. Do you want to discuss Albon or Gasly next?
Albon first.
Okay. Oh.
I think it makes sense.
Ooh.
Very good shot.
Thank you. How would you sum up Albon's the 11 races at Toro Rosso? Can't be bad if he got promoted to Red Bull, right?
Very good. And at times, both him and Kvyat challenged Gasly when he was in the Red Bull. Yeah, I don't feel like we had a lot of time with him in the Toro Rosso, really, but very good for the time that he was there, obviously. He had some very consistent and decent performances, so yeah, well done to him.
7 as well? Or an
Yeah,
8?
I'd say 7.
Okay.
For that half, I'd say a 7, yeah.
Let's get on to the weird enigma. I think one of the oddest drivers for this season. Pierre Gasly had an absolute mare at Red Bull.
And it drops, and he's won this
Sorry.
hole. And after that one, our leader has banked.
Make sure
shot looked terrible.
For fuck's sake. I was so happy with my shot and you just ruined it.
And fresh
I know.
skin is up for
Just
grabs
looked
on
bad.
this hole.
Oh, dear.
Fuck's sake.
Sorry.
Anyway, sorry Gasly. We got a bit sidetracked.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we gave him a 3 out of 10 for his time at Red Bull. At Toro Rosso, he looks like a completely different driver.
Yeah, it's down to the driver. It must be, because you can't just perform so poorly at Red Bull and then perform so well and get a podium with Toro Rosso. It's ridiculous. Not the car's fault. Yeah, I felt like once the pressure was on Gasly, he was struggling. He really
What
was.
the fuck?
We should do these live
Keep
streams
an
more
eye on
often.
that wind. Could come into play on
Yeah,
this hole.
I won the first hole and I was thinking, wouldn't it just be great if for one time where we actually live stream this, I beat you? And that's gone really badly, hasn't it? Oh dear.
I like the way this is tracking.
Oh, very good shot though. Well done.
Haha. Sorry Gasly, we will
Here's a
talk
putt
about
for
you
birdie.
one of these days.
All right, nicely done.
Yeah,
Now
no,
it's
his
up
performance
here
in
for
Brazil was sensational.
next
It's weird
putt
how
is
he sort of
the
went back
bird.
to Toro
Let's
and the
see how he
pressure
does.
got lifted somehow.
All right, let's check the
Um,
scorecard here.
I'd argue at
Two-way
Toro Rosso
tie
in the
after
latter
that
part of the
hole.
season he did better than Kvyat. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So as much as
And as we tee
we
off
absolutely
here,
crucified
two
him for his
skins on
time
the
at
line
Red
this
Bull,
hole.
I'd argue his time at Toro Rosso he probably deserves an 8.
I'd give him a 7. Not quite an 8 for me. I'd say a 7.
Okay. And for Toro Rosso themselves, I'd say a solid year. I'll give them a 7. I think that's kind of where Toro Rosso expect to be.
Yeah,
All right.
the podiums
let's let her
were
rip.
really good. It's close to an 8, but I'd say a 7's just about right.
Oh, there's a bit of breaking news for F1 2020, which we will come on to. Come on to the end once we've gone through the rest of the teams. Toro Rosso were 6th in the constructors. I've just checked. So, and I only checked because I was wondering about who was 7th.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So yeah, the team in 7th was Racing Point,
That one
who
didn't
thankfully
sound
got more than a point. Sorry, Williams.
Ooh,
oh, for fuck's
tree
sake.
got in the way on that one.
Where's that going?
Koska and
Hello?
Bunker. Yeah, Racing Point, such renamed after Lawrence Stroll bought the team out. There's actually rumours that they could be adding the Aston Martin name to their team next year. Clearly Lawrence has gone up to his daddy and gone, I don't like the name. Okay, son, we'll get Aston Martin on board.
To be fair, nobody likes the name.
Yeah, it's a bit shit. Aston Martin would be a lot better.
I rate the name a 0 out of 10.
I mean, how would you rate the team's performance? I mean, it's argued now that they got more
Hopefully you
investment
can
than they
deal
had
with
when they
a
were
little
Force India.
Sand shot here.
But they haven't really done what Force India used to do and outperform their resources. I'd say it's been a tough year for Racing Point.
Yeah, I think so. Which is strange, really, because they've got money now. And whereas before, where they were struggling with money, they yet somehow performed incredibly well. And sometimes outperformed the midfield teams. And, you know, they were consistent in finishing 4th or 5th in the Constructors for a couple of years.
Looks like he's in a bunker here. Let's see
They
how this
were
goes down.
incredible team. but when they were Force India, Racing Point, not there. It's a step backwards.
I don't mind being too harsh on him actually, because I get the sense, I don't know if it's just you, but I get the sense a lot of drivers in the paddock don't particularly like Stroll and like how he stayed in F1.
He shouldn't be in F1 probably. I don't think he deserves to be there, but he's like a Pastor Maldonado really. He's got money, that's why he's still in F1. And what's even worse is, well, his dad owns the team.
So there's no way he's... Can imagine that conversation.
His dad owns the team, it could be worse than a Maldonado situation, because he could be there for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So, depending how long this team stays.
I wouldn't say it's all down to Stroll as to why the team struggled this year, but he doesn't help the case.
He has very rare moments, Stroll, where he has a good race. And I say very rare. All the other times are incredibly poor, especially his qualifying performances.
Yeah,
his qualifying performances are shocking.
He doesn't very often get out of Q1.
Yeah. It's very easy for Sergio Perez in that team.
Yeah, no wonder he signed a new 3-year contract.
Yeah. They'd want him to stay. Because Stroll struggles to deliver at the moment.
I'd argue Perez, for me, is the best driver for a midfield team. He just seems to be able to get the results out there when they're of a struggle.
Okay, it's time to send this ball on its way.
But let's be honest, while the Stroll's in the team, I can't see him losing a teammate battle.
Yes, Perez is a good midfield driver, definitely. And compared to Stroll, he looks like a genius.
Oh,
sorry,
shit.
I've talked shit about Stroll, but come on, he should be there.
I knew that was going to happen.
I like how it hit the fence, but it still just about got over.
Yeah, thank God. What would you rate their two drivers and the team out of 10?
He's won this hole.
32
and as this one comes to an end, it looks like you won't be the winner.
This is totally not how it usually goes live stream, just saying.
There was a lot of draws though in that.
Okay, I'm gonna head
very
on
good.
over to the club.
I'm happy with that.
See you next time.
Yeah, I suppose we should do another one.
Yeah.
So, Racing Point. I'll start with the team. Not great. They've had some good performances here and there. I'd probably say a 5 in terms of their performance this year as a team. They do need to make some improvements, including the name of the team. So, hopefully they'll do that. They need to step it up for next year. Sergio Perez, he's carrying that team. He's had some very good performances this year. I give him. I'll give him an 8. I'll give him an 8, just about.
And you're going to give Stroll an 8, right?
Yeah, and then probably halve it. Halve it again, maybe. I don't know. Lance Stroll, very, very poor. I'd have to give him a 3. He should not be in F1. But sadly, we're going to see him for a while.
I'm going to give him a 4 just purely because I think his race performances are better than his qualifying performances. Not that that's saying much.
It's so poor, his qualifying performances, though.
It's very difficult to score
It's
points.
probably why most races he doesn't score well, because, well, his qualifying performances are laying him down so much.
And the problem is, the midfield in F1 this year I think has been closer than ever. When you're that bad in qualifying, you're starting like 6-7 places below where you should be. So you're already fighting a losing battle before the race has even started.
Yeah. Exactly.
Perez, I'm going to give a 7. Not quite an 8, but again, a very good year for Perez. I think he's done a good job considering the equipment he's had. I don't think the Racing Point car's been as good as I was expecting. I thought they'd make good development through the season, but it hasn't really happened. They still look a way off. They still look a way off for likes of McLaren and even Renault.
They're not at that level.
So they've still got a long way to go. The Racing Point team themselves, did you give them a 4?
A 5.
A 5. Yeah, I'll give them a 5 as well. The problem is they're limiting how much they can do when they're going to have one really poor driver in the car for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and it will affect their score, so, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to affect the constructors as well. You can't just expect Sergio to do everything. You need 2 solid drivers.
Agreed. 8th place in the constructors was Alfa Romeo. I'm hearing rumours they might be losing that name next year. Great. Because they haven't changed the name enough in recent years.
It's going to be Sauber again, just to confuse us even more.
Yeah, it took the commentators till like midpoint of the season to stop calling them Sauber. They might have to start calling them it again.
Yeah.
To be fair, right until the last few races, I still heard the Sky commentators saying Force India and Sauber sometimes.
And welcome to the golf club.
Yeah,
My name's
it's
John.
happened.
To
be fair, Force India is a better name than Racing Points. I can understand that one.
Good feeling here, folks.
I say it's been a weird season for Alfa Romeo. They started the season really well. Kimi Raikkonen was scoring points at most races. But I don't know what it is. Since the summer break, I'd argue they've probably looked the worst team after Williams.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's been very up and down
let's
for
give
Alfa
it a
Romeo.
nice big
First half they did
smash.
very well, second half, not at all. Very mixed.
And yeah, it's a very tough one for them. Kimi Raikkonen had a great start to the year. Difficult to maintain that just
This could
because
be
of
in
the
the
car performance. For what it's worth, I think Kimi's had a very Kimi-like year. I think he's done a very solid job.
I think he's outdriven the car a couple of times also. He's had some fantastic performances in that car. He's 40 years old.
Yeah.
He's still a fantastic driver, and he deserves to be in F1.
Imagine how good he'd be if he had his gloves. Damn well.
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm
More
not
ice
gonna lie.
cream.
I was quite harsh on this driver in the mid-season review point, Antonio Giovinazzi. But I'll give credit where credit's due. I think he's definitely done better in the second half of the year.
He needed to, because he
And this time
performed
for the
very
birdie.
badly against Kimi in the first half. He stepped it up a bit now. So to give him another year, Alfa Romeo, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, he did enough. If his
this
performances
puts him in
hadn't
the
have
hole.
improved from the start of the season, I'm not sure if he would have kept him.
Agreed.
But I think he's done enough. I find it astonishing that Kimi's going to be 41 next year, and he still does a very good job.
Today our leader has 1 skin on the board.
Just shows if you train hard enough
And drink.
Still, yeah, you can still
Skin up for
drive
grabs
well
on
in
this
a
hole.
F1 car.
Let's get down there and see what happens.
Says you have to. Who says you've passed it after 32, 33?
Well, Hamilton's going to be 35 next year.
Well, if Kimi can still be there, why can't Lewis still be there for another few years?
Oh, definitely.
So,
Couldn't agree with that anymore. Yeah, Alfa Romeo at the start,
Okay,
if you'd have
here
asked
we
me halfway
go.
through the season, I'd probably give him a 6 or a 7. Based on how their season's ended, I'm going to have to give him a 5.
a 5 as well.
Yeah,
But like the first half, I probably would have said a 7, and then the second half,
Ooh,
probably like
quite
a
the
3
slice
or
on
4.
I'm going to give Kim...
Overall, 5.
I'm going to give Kimi... I'm torn between a 7 or an 8. But I'm going to give him an 8, I think.
I think an 8 is fair.
Okay,
There's been some very
yeah, we found you in the rough.
And it shows
I
that,
don't think
you
that
know,
it's,
being 40
in the
doesn't
deep
matter.
Let's hope for us all.
Well done, Iceman. Yeah.
And Antonio, based on the way he's improved, I'm going to give him a 6.
You
don't sound too...
average for me.
Look at you
I'd say a 5.
on the green and under regulation, putting for eagle here.
Yeah, he's still got... He's got to keep progressing next year, that's for sure.
Yeah, he needs to step it up next year.
You want to see him there with Kimi. And to be honest, you want to see more from the Alfa Romeo car as well.
Yes, definitely.
Or Sauber, or whatever the fuck they're going to be called.
Preferably something that's not illegal.
Okay.
And now we get on to the stars of Drive to Survive. Haas. They finished 9th in the constructors and quite a long way off Alfa Romeo and Racing Point. I'd argue this has been Haas's worst year in the sport.
By far, 100%. They were very impressive on their Haas's first year was incredible. What a
let's see
turnaround!
what you can do with this 7-footer.
Just they seem to have the pace, but they're so poor on their tyres. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's
This
awful.
putt for his
It's been a terrible year for Haas. If they keep having years like this, they'll pull out definitely.
In the words
It's been
of
a very poor year.
in the words of Grosjean, that car will not be going in a museum.
The fact that
on the board here for our
they've
leader.
gotten points at all is quite astonishing, really.
It's mainly down to, I think, some stellar drivers from, in my opinion, another underrated driver in Kevin Magnussen.
Let's get this
A
going.
very underrated driver as well, Sainz and Kevin Magnussen. I don't think Kevin Magnussen is as good as Carlos Sainz, but he's decent, definitely. He deserves to stay in the team. And he's scored more points than Grosjean again this year. He's outperformed him again. Surprise, surprise. It's hard to judge his performance because
The car's
how
awful.
bad of a car he's had.
I mean, both drivers dropped back in races, but that's just because of what the car's like on the tyres. I don't think any driver
All
could
right,
do anything
let's
about
let her
that.
I'd say it's hard to judge, but I'd say Kevin's had a decent year. Nothing spectacular, but decent.
7?
Yeah, 7.
Now, we can criticise the car as much as we want, and trust me, Grosjean has. But if the car's going to be criticised, then I'm afraid so should Roman.
Whoa, it's in terms of entertainment for Netflix, Grosjean a 10 out of 10, mate. But my God, how is he still here?
To win the hole.
By far the worst driver on the grid, if you discount Kubica, I suppose.
This Kubica
But at least
doesn't
Kubica doesn't crash all the time.
Yeah.
Just, oh my God. You see, most weekends he has a good qualifying performance, and he qualifies, between 6th and 10th. You're like, yeah, that's really, really good. And then the races, it's like, oh.
And after that one,
Obviously, the
Skins
Haas is
in
not
pocket of our
performing
leader.
very well during the races. It's just so downhill.
We have a new skin
Or
up for
a
grabs
Grosjean.
on this hole.
And I can't
Let's
believe
get
he's
down
still
there
in
and see what
F1.
happens.
It just baffles me, really. He should have been gone 2 years ago.
I'm sure
How
there
is he
was,
still here?
I'm sure there was one race where Kevin Magnussen started at the back, Roman started in the top 10, and by like 10-15 laps in, Magnussen was ahead of him.
Yes. How does that happen? You got to talk about the moments where he's crashing in the pit lane. If you've wowed the commentators on where you've crashed, even Chandok was impressed.
And he wasn't very good.
No. How do you do this?
I'll be honest.
It's just insane. It's laughable.
I'll be honest, I used to watch practice sessions religiously, not so much this year, but I did watch that session. And I saw the front wing in the pit lane, and I thought,
I don't know if you
oh,
noticed,
someone's
but
broken
you're
off a
gonna
car.
have a little bit of
I didn't
streak
think
here,
someone
so
had
you can,
crashed in the pit
take them
lane.
down a notch here at least.
And I've never heard the commentators just all be like, wow. they were in shock. I was in shock.
Silverstone was the worst weekend for us. Grosjean been in it and then
And then
collided with Magnussen.
yeah, he followed up his awful practice crash by then taking out his teammate and himself in the race.
Yeah. How somehow
Rodrigo here now
both
on
drivers are
this
still
par
there, after that weekend, because that was poor.
How they were considering Grosjean or Hulkenberg. I'm not the biggest Hulkenberg fan, but how on earth did they come to the conclusion that Grosjean was a better choice?
It was somewhere along the lines of, well, he gives good feedback to the car.
Well,
I think
clearly
he good
not.
feedback when he keeps crashing into the barriers. It's not really good feedback, is it? Because they've gone backwards in terms of
Yeah,
performance.
I was going to say, if the feedback was that good, they wouldn't be doing awful like they are doing.
And this next putt for him.
The
is
only
Hurley.
conclusion I can come to in my head is that Hulkenberg and Magnussen really don't get along. But to be fair, besides that Grosjean and Magnussen don't get along that well either.
I feel like I have to rule out Robert Kubica's injury because you know it's harsh on him with that. I feel like
he only
Kubica
has
would drive a lot better had it not been for his accident.
Yeah, let me put it in layman's terms. Kubica drives probably better with one arm than Grosjean does with two.
This putt to win the hole.
At least he doesn't bin it all the time.
Yes.
Robert Kubica, it's I'd
After
put
that one, 3
Kubica
skins
to
on
one
the
side
board
and
for our
say
leader.
Grosjean's been the worst driver again this year.
I thought we were going to have an argument on that before, but now it looks like we're both going to agree. Grosjean out of 10. That's going to sound harsh. I'm going to say a 1. And the 1 is for him turning up.
The 2 is his qualifying performances for me.
Not the
But
cleanest
my
swing.
God, it's shocking that he's still in F1. And I'm not going to give any sympathy for Haas. I like this team, but my God, it's hard to like them this year.
All right, let's
They
see
need
how
to
he
turn it
does
around.
on this hole.
Gunther
Steiner, I'm having trouble with. I like him, but keeping Romain Grosjean, very, very poor.
He keeps saying the right things and how pissed off he is at the drivers, but then he keeps rehiring them.
Yeah, you can't keep doing that.
Okay, it's up to you. Do you try to
Needs
get back
to be
to the fairway,
changed.
or do you try to
And
close some ground between you and the
arguably, they
green?
might need to change to team principal.
Get Riva Bennett.
So, I don't think we've rated the Haas team.
2.
So, the team as a whole. Yeah,
too bad.
the 2
In
also,
the fairway.
they've gone backwards massively and their race performances are way off. A very, probably, the most disappointing team this year for me. The team that's gone downhill the most from where they were.
Let me put it this way: if you take away Magnussen's points, Haas would only have 8 points.
Yeah,
So
not far ahead of Williams, are they?
no, no, it's so poor. And if it weren't for Magnussen, he's been the one shining light in a really dismal season for them.
Okay, here we go.
Um,
This one to
the
save
one-
par.
Dim of light in the team.
And they've got the best engine on the grid. There's not what you can say they're in.
Got the
To win the
pace,
hole.
but for some reason, it's just really, really poor on the tyres. And they've had all season to fix it, and I don't think they have.
It's amazing.
I think they've said they've kind of abandoned
Golfer
the
in the
car.
lead is up
for next
there
year.
with 4 skins on the board.
I hope so, because my God, I don't want to see
Okay, we
this
have a
again.
new skin up
Yeah,
for
we need to go back
grabs
to the
on
drawing
this
board.
hole.
Really,
Let's
on
get
that
down
one.
there, see what happens.
If I was them, I'd sort of go back to the 2018 car and do development on that, because it's probably. But I think they were saying at one point, weren't they?
Most of the year they fell back on their Australia specs, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they saw.
All their upgrades.
We went 12, 13 races in, and then decided that the car that they started off the season was better. You know, despite the fact that I quote, Grosjean gives good feedback.
Yep.
Yeah, Haas really annoy me.
Let's put this ball down in the
I'm angry at Haas.
I enjoyed them in their first year, I really did, but I can't like them this year. They need to make changes.
So, go from being angry at Haas to quite sad for Williams, if I'm honest. It's been a really shocking year for
Good stuff.
for Williams. It's difficult to see such a big name struggling the way they are.
They're where we expected them to be this year, of course, but there's no signs of improvement, is there? I don't think.
I think there are times they looked like they got a bit closer as the season went through, but it wasn't enough. It's a really tough one. There was arguments about halfway through the season as well that their car from last year was quicker. That's not good. I think a change is needed. I know it's a family business and everything, but I don't think Claire Williams has done a good job. I think they've gone backwards since she's been at the helm.
He's got about 8 feet to the cup.
I don't think it's helped that they're just ruling out any team to help them out.
That's it. We don't want to be a B team. Well, at this point, you're a Z team.
They're definitely a C team.
Well,
they're not
you need to sink this one if you want to carry the whole. Nicely done. That's going to carry the
And if there's one person I really feel sorry for in the whole situation, it's George Russell.
Much to talk about on that
He
hole.
won the F2 championship.
Carry over to the next hole.
Yeah, he did win the F2 championship.
Ahead of Norris and he beat Norris and Albon, and then you look at it a year down the line, and Norris and Albon are in very competitive cars, and he's stuck at the back of a grid.
Yeah. Well, Albon's got it good in a Red Bull. Lando's alright. That's probably where they should have joined first, in the midfield car, these new drivers. And then Russell's had it worse.
Probably is how
It's hard to judge Russell's performance in such a shite car.
It's... Although I'd argue his highlight of the year came last week, where he topped the timing sheets in post-season testing in the Mercedes.
Well,
that's probably the most fun he's had all year.
You know, it's a bit windy out there, so keep that
I think
in
it
mind
just
as
shows
you go
how
on to the
good
tee.
a driver he is, and he just needs... someone needs to hire him, another team needs to, because he's performing well.
Why worry? I know he's on the Mercedes program, but there's been far too many examples of Mercedes in recent years of young drivers just not really getting chances on the Mercedes program.
Well, they completely abandoned Pascal Wehrlein, didn't they?
And Ocon's now gone to Renault and distanced himself from the program.
Exactly. And who's to say, once Hamilton or Bottas leaves, that they'll pick up, say, Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc or Daniel Ricciardo? Well, who's to say they won't do that?
Agreed. Well, it's difficult because, as well as Russell has done, and I think he has done very well, you can't say how well because there's just the only person to compare him to is Kubica, and no disrespect intended, but Kubica's driving with one arm. It's not a very good benchmark.
He should be an F1, and obviously he's not going to 2020. And you're very right. How can you judge Russell's performance against a driver who's clearly got issues driving the F1 car?
For Kubica, I think it's just the achievement has been the fact that he has been able to come back and drive a car.
Oh, that is a piss take.
It's a putt to win the hole. Yes!
Yes!
Oh, yours goes in, don't it?
And the golfer in the lead is up there with 4
Get in.
skins on the board.
Back in the game.
All
The
right,
one
and
the
fresh
one
new
moment where I
skin is
thought,
up for
wow,
grabs on this
Russell
hole.
looks like a
Let's
real
get this
special
going.
talent was Hungary, where he out-qualified and out-raced midfield cars.
Agreed. Very great qualifying performance from Russell there, and I'd say beating Kubica like 16 races to 3 or something,
and 21-0
to nil. Just shows.
All right, interested to see what he has in store for us here.
Yeah, a very good driver.
However, the Drivers' Championship reads the most misleading story of the year. Because Kubica somehow has a point and Russell doesn't.
Well, it's credit to Kubica for being at the right place at the right time. George Russell was just unfortunate. That's the only reason why Kubica has a point.
Yeah. For Russell, I think the only mark I can really give him is... I'm going to say an 8. And that's purely because, as well as comfortably outperforming his teammates, to say that he's a rookie,
9-footer here.
I can't remember him having any major crashes or accidents.
Very true.
Oh, man.
Although he hasn't really had many battles where he would have an accident. But
okay, this
doesn't
is
stop Grosjean.
Yeah. I can't give him an 8. I'll give him a 7.
On the board for our leader after that one.
He's done well. It's just so hard to judge. It could be an 8 out of 10 before. It's tough to judge when he's got a bad car.
A new skin up for grabs on this hole. Let's get.
And I don't want to sound heartless, so I'm going to say this straight off the back. Massive credit to Kubica just for returning to Formula 1, because a few years ago that didn't look like it could ever happen.
Yeah, and it's a great achievement for him to return to F1, and we should be proud of that. And to score a point in such a bad car. So,
in wet conditions with the only use of one arm. I mean, that is...
Yeah, it's impressive. You should be happy with that. He'll be in another racing series if he wants to do it. He's
Formula
E. He's a popular driver. Probably not Formula E, but there's lots of racing series out there.
Sets up around 165 yards out.
So, yeah. Based on performances compared to George Russell, I'm going to give him a 2. I have to. 2 is basically, well, he gets those points for not crashing, really, and being consistent and scoring a point. But always finishing behind Russell is not good.
No, yeah, I get what you mean. I'm going to give him a 3, just because I feel really harsh giving him a 2.
I feel like we've been robbed, because Kubica was a very fast driver before his injury. He really was. He was really impressive in days of F1 before the accident.
Yeah, if anyone ever questions if you haven't watched F1 that long or whatever, and you question how good Kubica was, just listen to the way that the likes of Hamilton and Vettel talk about him.
Yeah, both Hamilton and Vettel have rated him highly. So, that says a lot.
Let's not forget, if in 2008 when Lewis won his first championship, BMW were leading the championship at the halfway point with Kubica, and then for some bizarre reason decided to stop updating the car and focus on 2009, which went horrifically.
To win the hole.
Yeah, worst decision ever. Why? One of the worst.
Oh, we'll lead the championship. Let's focus on next year.
And after that one, 6 skins in the pocket.
Ridiculous.
So yeah,
All right.
no, yeah, Kubica is undoubtedly. It's such a shame he had that rally accident, because he really was one of the best drivers in F1 at that time.
We were robbed of seeing him perform well in F1 for even more years.
I'd argue in a way a bit similar to Massa as well. I don't think Massa was ever the same since when he had that accident.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a real shame, and I hope for him he has a good career after F1. I've heard is he becoming a Haas development driver?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I wish him all the best in that role. And to be fair, who knows? He might replace Kubica. He might replace Grosjean.
Yeah. Alright, thank you.
Oh my god, I got distracted, and I'm not even sure what by. Oh god.
That's gonna be... I think you might be alright there. I think you can get out of
No. No, I cannot.
that. Oh, really?
I am literally right smack bang behind a tree.
Oh wow, that's lucky. You can get up to the green there. Or not.
Not with shots like that, I can't.
Well, that could have been worse.
And just to say, Williams, you get a 1 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, especially I'm gonna have to give it a 1 as well because they abandoned their car last year, so they had so much time, more than any other team, to develop further on their car.
And they were late to testing. Yeah, that was
How
the.
How do you do that?
As soon as they're late for testing, we sort of knew how the season was going to go.
Okay, 11-footer here. This is definitely makeable.
Very, very poor, and they might be the next team to leave Formula One.
I hope not, for the sake of George Russell more than anything else, and losing a great name from the sport. But they've got to lose that stubbornness. They can't just keep going, oh, well, we don't want to be a B team, you know, we don't want to accept help. You need help. Carrying on like this is just embarrassing.
Right, drop this for double.
It is embarrassing. They need to find somebody to help develop that Williams car. Big time.
Well,
God, I'm putting like Williams here.
And this putt to win the hole.
You look at his arms.
I'm not even gonna get banned from YouTube if I reply to that.
Skins up on the board.
By the way, Everton beat Chelsea. 3-1.
We have a new skin up for grabs on this hole.
Very impressive.
Down
Leeds won as well. Anyway, coming back onto F1. So we've gone through all the teams now. What I thought we'd do is just go through sort of an awards thing, just basically come up with categories and decide to vote on them. I'm going to leave Driver of the Year till last, because I think that's always got to be the last one. I'm going to let you go first, Nick. What would you sort of want to...
Take your opponent down a notch here.
I can't say. What sort of award would you like to start off with, and who would you give it
to? Worst driver of the year, I guess. If we're doing, if we're doing best driver of the year, we should do worst driver of the year first.
This is looking like it's going to get rough.
It's got to be Romain Grosjean, hasn't it? It has to be.
That's exactly what I'm going for.
Okay, so you're in the rough here.
He's got a better car than Kubica has, and he's crashed so many times. At least Kubica was consistent.
Yeah.
That's you know. So yeah, it has to be Romain Grosjean for me. He shouldn't be there. The fact he's still there is incredible.
Well, it's not like
he makes a good Netflix series. That's the only thing I
cannot wait for season 2.
Yeah, season 2 and season 3 are going to be immense. Grosjean needs to step up big time. The amount of chances he's getting is ridiculous.
Let's see how he gets out of this one.
For for Kubica, you can say he hasn't, he's not exactly 100% with his body and everything. Stroll, you can argue, he's still quite a young driver. Grosjean's like 33.
Grosjean has no excuses. He's had so much experience. Agreed. No excuses.
Yeah, he has to be the worst driver of the year.
He's performing better, and I believe he's performing worse.
That's a magnanimous decision then on that one.
Yeah.
No real surprise. My award.
Setting up for
biggest surprise of the year, and I'm going to start with the performance of Honda.
Nicely done. That's
my nomination for that. And it really surprised me how well they've So
yeah, the performance
And as we
with,
tee
with
off on this
Honda and
hole,
Red Bull
2 skins
partnership
on the
after
line.
the year has been very impressive. For me, it's the turnaround at McLaren and how well they've performed together as the whole, not just the team but the drivers themselves. It's worked in every department almost. The only downside really is the Renault engine, but that was decided beforehand, you know. So I don't want to judge them too harshly on that. They've done so well with that Renault engine. It's impressive.
we'll I think the next category will go. So I don't think we'll debate over those two, but I think they'll both be massive surprises. So I can see arguments for either of them there.
Okay,
We'll
it's
do
time
best
to
and
send this
worst
ball
race
on
of the
its
year
way.
now. I think we'll start with worst race of the year. I feel like I'm going to say this every year while it's on the calendar. I'm going to go Sochi.
Sochi's bad. Although I'd argue this year Sochi was actually one I actually enjoyed. It was a slightly more enjoyable than it was normally. But I felt that's just because of the
Tee shot's
situation.
looking good
Most
here.
years it's got awful.
Oh,
I'm
thank
gonna
God
have
that's
to
there.
agree with you. Sochi is awful.
Hey, I
It's a
honestly
terrible track,
thought it was going to be in the fairway, but
and it needs to
hitting out
go.
the deep stuff now.
The fact that Germany is not on the calendar is shocking.
Especially
Sochi's
when,
gonna be there.
yeah, Germany's the one race we lose from the calendar this year up to next year. And I'm not going to lie, that's my race of the year.
It's for 2 skins.
Race of the year is Germany, definitely. It was a fantastic race. It was hard to keep track of all the action. So much happened. Drivers were struggling in the changeable conditions. The disaster weekend for Mercedes, you know. It had so much.
A point
Just-
for Williams.
That looks like 19 feet
Yeah,
from here.
Bottas losing ground in the championship.
Leclerc crashing out.
Disqualification for Alfa Romeo. Leclerc crashing.
Oh!
Great performance from Sebastian Vettel
And this putt to win the
from a
hole.
poor performance there the year before.
Kvyat getting a
So
podium.
much- yeah, there's so much to talk about.
And not to mention as well, that most of the chaos was caused by... I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before.
And after
The
that,
penultimate
leader
corner, as soon as you went
leads
off the
with 9
track,
skins.
it was like an ice rink.
Yeah, they struggled.
All right,
Most of the
and
drivers
fresh
struggled.
new skin is
Lewis
up for
nearly
grabs
binned it
on
there
this hole.
twice.
Let's get this going.
Lewis was lucky. It was, yeah, drivers were struggling. Definitely.
Hulkenberg bottling another chance at a podium. There's so much to see and talk about, and I could watch that race a lot over the next few years as one of the classics.
I felt 2019 we didn't get a lot of very good races, but Germany was definitely a fantastic race.
I felt in 2019 we had a few
Okay,
races
here we
where
go.
you were sat bored, motionless for 40, 50 laps, and then you get a safety car towards the end that would cause chaos. Brazil being a perfect example.
Yeah, if that didn't happen in Brazil,
That could have been up there.
yeah, definitely. You could
But then-
easily skip the first 50 or so laps of that race.
But the last 20 laps
I
were
think this is gonna
unbelievable.
bite.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
finished with Gasly getting second and Alfa Romeo
Nice.
getting fourth
Ended
and
up all
fifth.
right there. And to him, I say good luck. 'Cause this is an
And even then, I'd
insanely
still put
long
Brazil as the
putt.
last race
That's
on the
all let him
calendar.
make.
Oh, Abu Dhabi's only there because of money. And that's no secret.
Yeah.
That could also be up there for most.
What?
And this putt to win the hole.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Come on!
No,
Yes.
After that, our leaders sitting
Thank you.
up on the board with 9 skins.
So yeah, best race of the year Germany, worst race of the year Sochi. That's quite
And we have a
magnanimous,
new
that one.
Skin up for grabs on this hole.
Yeah.
Let's get down there and see what happens.
Your turn. What would be your next award?
guess you could say team of the year.
Oh, there's a few. There's a few. I think to me it boils down there's two, Mercedes or McLaren.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I hate the slice.
I'm gonna give it to McLaren. I think their improvement has been absolutely superb, and yeah, I'm just to beat
All right, let's see what
Renault when they have the same
this one.
engine. I think that's an incredible achievement, and I think the driver pairing as well. I have to get to McLaren.
I'm going to say this now. Mercedes are a very close second with their.
No.
They're very good with their race strategies, and to be this consistent and win 6 constructors' titles in a row, no other team has done that. It's an incredible achievement to make.
Absolutely.
They could add more to that tally. But McLaren has to have it this year. It's such a turnaround for them. Very impressive. McLaren.
Worst team of the year, Williams, right? Although Haas are very close.
Williams definitely, because there were no signs of improvement at all. At least Haas got the odd decent performance here and there, although it was very rare. I think they have Kevin Magnussen to thank for that they're not rated worst team of the year. But yeah, it has to be Williams. It's because they had all the time in the world to improve the car, and it's just
Nice.
nothing.
Here we go. This putt for the bird.
Yeah, so that one's fairly obvious. This one's a bit of a fun one. What's your funniest moment of the year? I'm gonna let you go first because I'm still thinking about it.
Okay, this putt to win the hole.
Oh, well, it's tough because there's quite a few, and it's hard to remember them all, to be fair. Jesus.
I'm gonna say mine. I think I've figured it out. I'm gonna go with Carlos Sainz, Team
Okay,
Radio,
this one for par.
Smooth Operator. I'm gonna give that. That's gonna be mine.
Carlos singing on the radio is funny.
Okay, nicely done. Let's see what your friend has here. And let's see, he's setting up now, 2-footer.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably have to go with that also.
Change two-way tie though.
Another one I've just thought of, and it'd be a close second to me. The pre-race press conference or pre-weekend press conference with Ricardo and Norris, where Ricardo says out of like pubes, and Norris just starts crying. He's laughing that much.
That is very true. Well, as underrated Carlos Sainz is, people know him for being a smooth operator now, so he's got that
definitely
nickname now.
Put a slice onto that
So
one.
yeah, it has to be that, hasn't it? So it's very funny.
I was in a chuffing bunker.
There's been a lot of funny moments this year.
All right, let's see how he does.
I would say most. Trying to think most. There's one for you. Most controversial moment.
Well, Ferrari's in contention for a lot of this.
I know it's very recent and we're doing a full season review, but Leclerc keeping his podium at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. That is very controversial. I'm surprised, Ferrari. I'd have to agree with you on that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Green, good stuff. All right, this putt to win the hole.
I like this one. I've even given this a name. I hope you like this, Snake. What we're going to call this the Peter Wright Award. Think you know what this is? Think you know what this what that means? Who did the biggest bottle job? Me with that putt, actually.
4 feet to the hole. You can do this.
I'm going to say Valtteri Bottas.
In Germany.
In terms of fighting for the championship, yeah. That for me was a big turning point. So yeah.
Great putt in there.
I could.
And he had some poor second half of season performances that pulled him away from Hamilton.
I could agree with that. Another mention.
Board for our leader after that one.
Charles Leclerc in Monaco qualifying. I think he looked odds on for pole position.
All right, and fresh new skin.
But it is Monaco, so I think that just about saves him.
And obviously Nico Hulkenberg trying to get podium.
Yeah. That's just a regular thing. He is the Peter Wright of F1.
If I had to pick one, it would be
Bottas.
Bottas.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you on that one.
The fairway.
So is there any other awards we can give?
Rookie of the Year?
Oh yeah, we touched on this. According to the official, are those official awards or is it just some random awards?
This sort of official, yeah.
Okay, so they give it to. Oh my god! What the fuck did I just do? So they gave it to Alexander Albon. Now, I said this to you earlier. I can't actually split Albon and Norris.
Well, hopefully you can deal with this one. Hitting off this pine straw can be tricky.
I've had to think about it. I'm gonna get accused of bias here, but I'm gonna say Norris.
I'm gonna give the edge to Norris also because he's been such a great team player. I felt like that's for a rookie. That's impressive. How the hell have you done that? That tree is so small.
Best of luck getting out of this pine straw.
That's what she said.
Stuff.
Albon has done great, but I think Lando just about deserves it.
Uh-oh. Please. Please!
That's alright. Let's take a bracket this one.
It's like a bit distracted here. If anyone has
a bit, yeah.
There's one thing we've learned from this live stream. I'm terrible at golf.
They actually gave it an action of the year.
Oh shit, I've done it again. They gave what to Max Verstappen?
And we join him now.
Action of the year. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming it's like most entertaining.
Most entertaining. Yeah. I guess that's on track. I mean, off track, I'd say Lando Norris.
Well, yeah. But on track, action of the year.
Danny Ricciardo's a shout as always. Charles Leclerc's been very entertaining to watch this year. Verstappen as well.
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz to an extent, although we haven't really seen much of it. Thanks, camera people.
I'm gonna say one driver in particular, but it might be for the wrong reasons, and that's Sebastian Vettel.
I thought you said Grosjean.
For me, he's the most entertaining on track this year because of his collisions with his teammate, as well as some other performances as well, going off the track in Canada and losing his quickly after that as well. To me, Vettel's been the most entertaining on track, I think.
He'll get a skin.
Okay, I'm going to give it based on good entertaining, not Vettel. I'm going to say Danny Ricciardo. I don't know, there's just something about his dive.
In terms of good performances, yeah. Great overtakes, yeah.
Oh, you might lose this whole Snake.
Take it easy.
You just need to relax. Take it easy.
Alright, 13-footer here.
Then that's on footage.
Oh man.
Fucking hell, Jay, don't you too bad out.
Jake's just completely lost it on this hole.
Yeah.
Okay. Please.
Best
please
and
take
worst best performance, I mean, and by this I mean, like, a driver at a particular track, race weekend, whatever. Best and worst. Now, worst, is there even a debate? It has to be Grosjean at Silverstone, surely.
Yeah. No good.
Been in the pit lane, taking out himself and his teammate.
I want to put behind that Max Verstappen in Mexico.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
And after that,
In
one,
terms of-
sitting on the board,
in terms of
at
best,
12,
And
skins.
I'm struggling to remember what track it is, and I might get this wrong, so correct me if
Skin up
I'm
for
wrong.
grabs
You'll know.
on
I think
this hole.
you'll know what I mean.
Let's get down there and see what happens.
My best performance, Lewis Hamilton at, I believe it was Austin. It was a race where he was complaining about tyres every 2 minutes.
I don't remember that race really well.
and he held
Alright,
on
let's
when
let her rip.
cars behind him were on much fresher tyres.
Tough one, this one. For me, I'd probably say Sebastian Vettel in Germany was very impressive, considering where he was, and how so much happened in the race. Vettel's history of racing in the wet has been very poor, but actually he did very well in those conditions.
It's weird that you say that, because he got his first ever F1 win in the Toro Rosso was at a soaking wet Monza. But it's since then, I agree with you, since that brilliant performance in the wet, he's been struggled in the wet, which is quite weird. Wow.
Okay, let's see what
How
you
many
can
times
do
have I
with this
done that?
7-footer. Yeah, nicely done.
I've
Let's
kind of
see what
looked
your
out. Oh, we're
opponent
not
does
losing
now.
that hole there.
And let's see what the scorecard says.
I've got one
That's
for
like
you,
come back to
Probably
bite
could
me.
take
and it was a long time ago,
The
but
next
I'm
hole,
fairly certain
more
he
skins
won
on
the
the
race
line.
by a country mile. Bottas in Melbourne.
He did well. Yeah, it was a very good race for him. Very impressive. It's a good mention.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, and to be honest with you, it isn't much from Melbourne to remember. But we always get so excited for the first race of the season, but naturally Melbourne, unless it's raining, is quite boring.
Yeah, I guess that just leaves Driver of the Year now, I think.
Yeah. Oh, this is you. I think in recent
give
years
her
it's
a
been quite
smash
easy.
here.
I'd argue this year, but it's not easy. I don't know about you, but for me, there's 3 drivers that have got to be
There
thought
is
about
3
here.
drivers. Yeah.
There's
There's
Lewis
definitely
Hamilton,
3.
Lewis Hamilton, of course, being the champion. Max Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz.
Yeah. Charles Leclerc's not far behind that, but he has had some poor
Yeah.
performances, so he's not far behind them 3. But yeah, there is 3 on the list.
It's really tough.
So far, so good for this one.
If you told me, because I said at the midpoint of the season it was
Verstappen.
Max Verstappen,
Yeah.
but his performance in Mexico was not great.
Strangely, I'm gonna put Verstappen third now.
A little bit. Yeah. He won in Brazil, didn't he? So that was a great performance.
Now,
And
the
it
driver,
was pretty solid throughout.
the
but
driver of
apart
the
from
year doesn't have to be the champion, but I think I'm gonna give it to a champion.
Yeah.
I just can't see past Lewis Hamilton on this one. Might be a bit biased, some people would argue, but I just, once again, he's done very little wrong.
I'm very torn between Sainz and Hamilton. I'm just thinking about some performances and that. I think Carlos Sainz has been in a scrap a couple of times, but it's been
And
very
here
rare.
we go. This one for birdie.
And of course, being in a midfield car, you're more likely to get in a scrap. Yeah, I think Lewis just has it for me, just about.
Yeah.
Okay, this
But I'd argue since 2014, it's the closest. It's the most I've had to think about a driver of a season.
Yeah, because last year, for me, was Hamilton's best year, 2018.
And even though
2019, he's done again.
And even,
the drivers are getting closer to Lewis.
and I don't think that's Lewis dropping off. I just think at the moment we've got a really good, at the exception of one or two, we've got a really good grid of drivers.
I think Lewis is still at his peak from 2018. It's just the competition's getting closer.
Now let's see what your friend can do.
Mercedes is still up there, but Ferrari and Red Bull are closing in, as well as other teams are closing in. Well, apart from Aston Williams, but yeah.
And with that, the match will end in a bit of a tie of sorts.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton,
those winnings
very well done, driver of the year. Well done to Carlos Sainz and Verstappen as well, it must be mentioned.
All right, thank you very much for the round, my friend.
And Leclerc, Norris and Albon too.
Yeah, well done. I'm looking forward to next year, definitely.
Now, we will do a proper season review in March. The season starts on March 15th, so what we'll probably do, I believe, is usually they finish testing, don't they, 2 weeks before the season starts. So what we'll probably do is the weekend before it starts, we'll probably do a proper season preview, because there's no point doing a season preview until testing's been done, I would say.
Yeah, and we'll vote who's best tester of the year, which will probably be Ferrari again.
Yep. I'm just not falling for it anymore. I don't care if I'm like 2 seconds ahead. I'm just gonna be like, wait to see what happens in Melbourne.
Yeah, testing is never look into it too deep until we get to Melbourne. Melbourne is where we see the true pace of the cars.
Let's talk about a few things, because I mean, obviously, so we'll go in depth when we actually do a season preview, but there's a few things I want to mention. So, first of all, yes, next season is 2020, not 2021, because that's all everyone seems to be talking about. Obviously, with the massive changes coming, next year's kind of been forgotten. But there is a few.
Yeah, it's quite annoying, really. It's like we shouldn't really look forward to 2020 yet. It's all about 2021.
Well, I think F1 posted an article yesterday saying that there's only 3 drivers under contract for 2021. Shortly followed by them putting those stupid Lewis to Ferrari rumours up again. But
it has done.
A few
things. I was
things.
surprised that Ferrari at all gave Lewis a compliment. That's a surprise.
Yeah. A lot of people talking about a Hamilton-Vettel swap, but I don't think Mercedes will want Vettel. Based on current form.
I think they'd like an idea of a German driver in the German team. So you never know. I wouldn't rule it out. It depends how well Vettel does 2020, I think.
So, there isn't many changes for 2020, but we'll discuss them anyway. First of all, the calendar. There's 22 races next year, which I know you're not a fan of. I think
many races.
My view isn't the amount of races being too many. It's that there's too many tracks that I'm not bothered about.
Well, I have several issues with it, not just one. One, too many races. And agreed with you. There's a lot of races on that calendar where you could easily just get rid of. I'd say you could get rid of about 5 to 10 races. Yeah.
Well, let's go down. Let's go through them. Russia,
Abu Dhabi, Monaco at times, definitely, especially with how the cars are.
Yeah.
Of course, Monaco's never gonna go.
France.
Yeah. France. Yeah. Definitely.
If it wasn't the first race, Melbourne.
Melbourne. Definitely.
Baku, although it had one really good race, can be quite dull sometimes.
Absolutely. Monza.
Spain's not great.
Spain as well.
And to think we've got all those, and yet we've lost Hockenheim.
Hockenheim's been one of the best tracks in recent years.
Yeah, the last two Hockenheim races were superb. And we nearly didn't get a race there last year. Or this year, should I say. I keep thinking it's 2020. And now we've got the addition of 2 new tracks for next year. And I'm not going to lie, neither of them particularly excite me.
No.
We've got Vietnam, which is another street track. And I'm not going to lie, I think we've got too many.
Don't need it. It's unnecessary. The fact we might have another street track with Miami GP, because I believe that's a street track also, where they're playing in it. So, yeah, it's not good.
Well, let me put it to you.
Street track.
Let me put it to you this way: I get Formula E. An issue of Formula E, they're all street tracks, and it doesn't promote great racing most of the time. It's just
one reason I can't watch Formula E is definitely that they're all street tracks. The gaps between the races, like 3 weeks to the next race.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed watching a season of Pro Formula E, and then looked at the calendar and realised I got 2 months to wait for the next round.
It's bad how their calendar works.
And then the other new track next year isn't a street track, but it's the Dutch Grand Prix. Couple of issues with this one. Firstly, let's just get rid of the elephant in the room. The Dutch fans are annoying. Like, really annoying.
Yeah, they are. No offence, but they're a bit too biased towards Max Verstappen. Just a bit.
Yeah, even in Belgium and Hungary, tracks nearby, every time Verstappen does something...
Right, with every collision, every collision that involves Max Verstappen, they seem to automatically blame the other driver. They hate Esteban Ocon. Just like... No.
I saw the comments when he announced he joined Renault, and all the Verstappen fans are like just slagging him off.
Literally, the majority of the comments was, "Oh, he doesn't deserve that seat." Okay, underrated driver. Okay, whatever.
And if any Dutch fans watch this, Brazil 2018 was Max's fault.
It was Max's fault.
Why?
He shouldn't have even been battling a lapped car. He's had such a gap. It was about 15 seconds or something. He was so far ahead of Hamilton, and yet it's like, what are you doing? He had it under control.
Just Ocon's come out of the pits on fresh tyres. He just wants to unlap himself, and Verstappen thinks, no.
At that point in the race, Hamilton would not have beaten Max. Max was quick enough to win. Max threw it away.
Well, he wasn't that far off him in the end, even with damage and losing all that time. Which kind of
his immaturity cost him in that race. One of many races where that's come into play.
But yeah, all of that has resulted in Dutch fans hating Ocon. Like, really hating him.
He doesn't deserve the hate.
My second problem... My second issue with Zandvoort, I believe the track's called... from what I've heard, it's quite narrow and difficult to overtake. And we already have quite a few tracks of that nature.
Yep. It's too many races on the calendar, and there's a lot on there that can easily get rid of. To me, there shouldn't be any more than 20 races, because it will get to the point where you'll go to a lot of race weekends and go, I'm not keen on watching that.
Well, I was looking at the calendar, like, 7 of the first 8 races, I could take or leave them. There's only Bahrain where I feel like we usually tend to get a great race.
Yeah.
And then yeah, but the second new thing in 2020, this is the other thing as well. I think this is why that 2020 doesn't feel like much of a detachment from 2019. Not only are the cars pretty much the same, there's only 2 changes to the driver lineups. Kubica out at Williams, Latifi in, and Hulkenberg out at Renault, Ocon in. A bit about Esteban Ocon, other than the fact that Verstappen fans hate him. I don't hate him, and I'm actually very happy to see him back in F1.
Yeah. You know, the fact that he didn't get a seat this year was really disappointing. He's definitely a good enough driver to be in F1 from what I've seen from his performances. His rivalry with Sergio Perez when they were teammates.
Yeah.
Like the team favoured Perez a little bit with the sponsors, etc. That's Perez. Well, Ocon really got under Perez's skin, big time, because Perez ended up having some really poor performances when racing with Ocon, and particularly in Singapore. I believe this Sergio Perez's worst race. Ocon is a good driver, so he deserves a seat with Renault. I can't wait to see what he can do compared to Daniel Ricciardo.
I tell you what, Ricciardo and Ocon, that has the makings of what could be a real feisty rivalry between teammates.
If Ocon can perform to the level of Ricciardo, I can't wait to see how it goes.
They're both. You definitely couldn't accuse either driver of being boring and defensive. They're both very attacking drivers.
They are aggressive drivers, yes. Yeah.
It is going to be tough to match Daniel Ricciardo because I think he is one of the best drivers on the grid. Well, if Renault have a poor year next year, they can't blame the drivers because for me, I think they've got a very strong lineup next year. They just need to give them a car so they can actually show what they can do. It's a big year for Renault next year, but they've definitely got a driver lineup to do good things. In regards to Latifi, the most I can say, I mean, I've watched a bit of F2 this year. From what I've watched, I know you haven't really followed F2 much this year, and you'll probably admit yourself, your Latifi knowledge probably isn't that high. From what I've seen of him, and mine's probably not much better either, but he seems a solid driver. From what I've seen of him in F2, he doesn't come across as the most attacking driver. He seems to be one of those that really thinks about her races. He seems to be quite good on the tyres. And if I had to compare him to someone from the current grid, I don't know, I'd say he's maybe like a... I'm trying to think...
I'm predicting next year that Williams are probably going to stay where they are, and that's last. If they are to be last, and not really fighting with the other cars, then it's going to be really tough to judge Latifi's performance. The only thing you can judge on is with his teammate, Russell. And that's important, because if you're not beating your teammate in the worst car, then no one's going to be interested in you.
Well, this is the thing. Next year is where it really gets important, I think, for George Russell in particular, because I think if he comfortably beats Latifi, I think then teams are really going to start becoming interested in him.
Yeah.
Because I think Latifi, no disrespect to Kubica, but Latifi is a much better benchmark.
For Russell, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I hope for Williams' sake that they're not struggling again at the back. But if I'm being realistic, I think they are going to be. The best they can hope for is that they've closed the gap and it at least gives the drivers a chance to produce some shocks and actually at least battle with a few other cars. But even that seems a little bit unlikely. Yeah, I've got no... A lot of people say Latifi's sort of bought his way into the seat, but he was the F2 runner-up. You know, it's not like he did shit in F2. You know, and he was reasonably competitive when Russell and Norris were there as well. So, you know, I think he'll do a solid job, but it's just going to be tough in that car, and it's going to be tough against Russell, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So, but no, I wish him all the best, and we've got 2 Canadians on the grid next year. Can't remember the last time we had that. It'd be good for the Canadian fans at the Grand Prix. That's for sure. He'll never have actually raced at Montreal before, Latifi, because they don't do it They don't do it on the F1 calendar. Oh, sorry, the F2 calendar even. So it'll be good for him. The final thing I want to touch on before we wrap up this stream, probably a very long stream, the matches have actually kicked off, but I won't mention them. Oh fuck. Yeah, don't say anything, Jake. You can vent afterwards. So one thing we had at Abu Dhabi was we had 20 laps of no DRS. I actually thought the racing was better without it.
100% agreed. As soon as that DRS came back, the overtakes looked simple and easy. We don't want easy overtakes. We want side-by-side action between the cars going into several corners. That's racing, not going down get right behind one car, wait until you get to the DRS zone, stuck right behind the car, open your DRS, sail past the car before you've even entered the next corner. It's crap. DRS needs to go.
No, I agree. I think in 2021, I hope it does go, because they've said the cars should be able to follow each other, so it shouldn't be an issue with needing DRS.
I'd rather have 20 good overtakes than 100 poor overtakes in terms of entertainment. I don't want 100 easy overtakes over 20 good overtakes, you know?
No, absolutely, I absolutely agree with you, and it's important for F1, because I think what we're seeing with the calendar and also with DRS, the F1 fans don't want quality, not quantity. I'd rather have 15 good races than 22 shit ones. I'd rather have 20 good overtakes than 100 shit ones. It's not how much, it's how good it is that's the important thing.
Quality over quantity.
Yes.
So for this, yeah.
And another thing I need to work on over the winter as well. A final note from me: the camera work next year's got to be better.
The camera work got better towards the end of the year. The issue is for me is who they are watching. They are picking the wrong battles a lot, an awful lot. They're mainly looking at the top drivers, even when they're not doing really that much in particular.
No.
And we're missing a lot of midfield action and a lot of action towards the back as well, when sometimes that's the most entertaining, or even all the entertainment you're going to get out of the race.
That's the thing,
Change.
That's the thing, yeah, I agree. I probably do want to see Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull over the others. But not if Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull aren't doing anything.
Which is what they've been doing for most of the time. I think it was
China.
I can't remember which track it was. China. That was the worst one, yeah. Where they were watching Ferrari for what seemed like an eternity. Like there was going to be a battle between them, but it was just a simple swap. It was like...
Well, meanwhile, all we could see on the timing screens was the midfield teams constantly battling and changing positions.
Yeah, it was awful. And it's strange because we've never argued about camera work before until Liberty Media came in. So that needs to stop.
One thing I would say though, in their defence, I suppose, is that with all the graphics we have now, obviously at the side of the screens we can see where every driver is. There's nowhere to hide. Like years and years ago.
Some of the graphics are awful, by the way, like the chance of overtaking. I just have to mention that, by the way.
Tyre performance.
Some of the graphics are terrible. They need to get rid of them. Tyre performance, chance of an overtake. They need to go. They're rubbish. Stop stating what race number it is. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't care if it's race 1012 or whatever.
Race 1000 was shit.
You had your 1000. Yeah, you had your 1000th race and it was shit. So stop the countdown, because no one cares at this point what race number it is.
Unless you go up to race 1069. But I could sort of forgive you. If you stop up there, then fair enough. But that's another 2-3 seasons away. Yeah, it's... But no, I was gonna say, like, you know, like years and years ago, we couldn't always see where every driver was and where the battles always were, because we didn't have that other side showing us where every driver was and what was happening. So that's one thing, I suppose. Maybe we had this issue in the past as well, but we didn't know. But even so, it still needs work. The fact that McLaren actually had to officially complain halfway through the season because of the lack of coverage Sainz was getting said a lot.
I agree.
I don't think it really solved that issue as well. There were many times, like, was it Abu Dhabi or was it Brazil? I can't. Where Sainz started at the back and was overtaking left, right, and centre, and we didn't see any of it apart from replays.
Yeah, we didn't see it at all. Yeah.
But now that brings an end to our F1 2019, I think, quite extensive season review.
Very, very much so.
We haven't got that long to wait with the nature of the calendar. We're actually only just over 3 months away from Melbourne, believe it or not. So yeah, not long till it all gets going again. We've also got pre-season testing as well in February. And yeah, hopefully... Yes! Sorry, I got a notification on my phone from my Barnsley app, and Barnsley are ahead.
God's sake, Jake.
I just couldn't. I was
trying to stay professional here, for God's sake.
I saw a notification. I was like, oh, I've got to look. But yeah, so yeah, that was really good, and yeah, bring on the new season of the 2021 is what we're all really looking forward to.
That's all that everyone seems to be looking forward to now. It's silly, really, but I'm looking forward to 2020. I can't wait to see what's in store. It's be interesting because there's been a lot of close competition. Be interested to see if it will get even closer. So, yeah,
and I don't
bring it on.
And I don't want to put Snake on the spot here, but that may not be this may not be our last live stream up to March, because potentially what we might do over Christmas or the New Year is maybe do a football mid-season report, because we did do some predictions for the Premier League and Championship, which have gone interestingly.
I don't remember.
So we might come back. We might come back and see how our Championship and Premier League predictions are coming along at some point over the next few weeks or so. But yeah, until then, that's it from us in terms of F1, and we'll be back in start of March 2020 to preview the new season. You know, unless I don't know, we've become super fans of Formula E.
I'll watch the Netflix series definitely. Formula One. That'll come up around March time. So yes.
Enjoy Drive to Survive, and we'll hopefully enjoy the new season as well. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Oh fuck! I forgot how to do this.